Peacock's M.I.A. introduces us to Etta Tiger Johns, a young woman who tells us right from the beginning that she's going to become a killer. But first she wants us to understand how she was shaped into the person she eventually becomes. Etta works as a tour guide for her family's boating business at their marina in Key Largo. One of her regular stops is a stretch of river, where she has spent years trying to coax an alligator out of the water using meat and a whistle. The alligator is there, it has simply never responded to her. Her parents, her father Dan, and her mother Leah, have different plans for her future. Leah in particular, recognizing that Etta has an eidetic memory and is genuinely brilliant, wants her to go to college. But Etta has no interest in college. What she wants is a seat at the table in the family's real business, running drugs for the Rojas Cartel. She eventually gets her chance, convincing Dan and Leah to let her come along on a run despite Leah's resistance. The trip goes smoothly, but the world they are operating in is about to change. Isaac Rojas, the aging boss the family has worked with for 20 years, is dying. Diabetes and a cascade of underlying illnesses have caused a wound to become infected, and the rot has spread to his leg. When his doctors tell him they need to amputate a second leg, Isaac refuses. He chooses assisted suicide instead, leaving the business to his sons Mateo and Samuel Rojas, with their enforcer Elias continuing in his role. Before he dies, Isaac personally thanks Dan and Leah for 2 decades of reliable, drama-free work. Their consistency has been the foundation of a long partnership, and he wants them to know he noticed. It's a warm farewell and the last moment of normalcy before everything falls apart. The nature of Elias's ruthlessness is established when he decides to bury the nurse who treated Isaac alive because she didn't catch the infection earlier. This level of violence makes Samuel a bit squeamish, but Mateo knows better than to show weakness in front of a man who is clearly more of a leader than a follower. The boys quickly decide they need a new stream of income, which means the old, reliable smuggling system is about to be thrown out the window. The reliable weeks in advance notice Dan and Leah are used to is replaced by a frantic, impromptu pickup call. Despite Leah's protests, Dan insists Etta comes along. When they arrive at the drop, they realize they aren't hauling bags of powder. They're transporting trafficked girls that Mateo and Samuel, now looking for additional revenue streams, want transported across the water. They have no choice but to go along with it, but things go from bad to worse when the ocean patrol spots them. Leah manages a clever distraction with another boat to get them near the shore, but once the girls start asking where they are being taken, Etta's conscience kicks in. She lets them all go, a self-righteous move that effectively signs her family's death warrant. Knowing the cartel doesn't do refunds or second chances, the family starts packing to vanish. While Etta slips away to the boat to grab her lucky whistle, the cartel ambushes the house. They kill Dan first. Leah desperately tries negotiating for their lives, but the cartel kills the entire family anyway. One heartbreaking moment comes from their mute cleaner Becca, who tries convincing Leah to tell the cartel she isn't related to them. Leah refuses, and claims the woman as her own daughter to spare Etta's life. Etta is forced to watch from the shadows as her entire family is executed, and her home is torched. With nowhere else to turn, Etta rushes to the town sheriff and offers to expose everything about the cartel, only to find out that in this town, the law and the cartel are on the same payroll. The sheriff stabs her, but a well-timed interruption from his wife gives Etta just enough room to escape into the river. He chases her into the river, but in a bit of poetic justice, the same alligator that ignored Etta's whistles for years finally appears at the exact moment she needs it most, and kills the sheriff for her. Etta drifts down the river and is eventually rescued by Lovely, who takes her to an underground body enhancement doctor alongside her cat-loving cousin Stanley. Lovely has to resort to some high-stakes blackmail, threatening to call the cops on the doctor's illegal practice, just to get Etta's gunshot and stab wounds treated. The doctor sutures her up but immediately demands a $1,500 discretionary fee, threatening to call in an anonymous tip identifying Etta and hand over her fingerprints to the authorities if she doesn't pay. To get the money, Etta has to go back to the last place she should be, her family's marina, which is now crawling with police. She heads straight for her parents' safe, hoping to recover their hidden cash, only to discover the money is gone. Instead, she finds a note written in Leah's handwriting, covered in numbers and coded writing she can't immediately decipher. Realizing it may be important, she takes it along with the small savings she kept hidden in her room and a few clothes. She nearly doesn't make it out, though. Kincaid, a private detective who has arrived at the scene, comes close to catching her inside the house. But Etta improvises by acting like Becca, the girl who was killed, successfully faking her way past the officers on the perimeter. The escape gets bumpy when Stanley, who is autistic and deeply devoted to his kittens, panics because his cats aren't moving. His erratic driving gets them pulled over by a cop, which is a nightmare since Lovely is undocumented and Etta is a fugitive. To ground Stanley and save them all, Etta begins singing his favorite yacht rock song, which also happens to be Dan's favorite song. The melody calms him down enough to prove to the cop he is fit to drive. After paying off the doctor, Lovely encourages Etta to hold a small service for her family. During this moment of mourning, Lovely reveals she helped Etta because she saw a tiger in her dream and saw Etta wearing a tiger necklace which was given to her by Leah. Standing there, Etta vows to hunt down every single person responsible for murdering her family and kill them one by one. Aside from Mateo and Samuel, they also have a half-sister, Caroline, who runs the cartel's money laundering operation through a legitimate real estate business. Caroline wants to finally transition into legitimate business ventures by constructing a major new development project. But the issue is that Mateo and Samuel can't bankroll her right now because they just executed their most reliable smugglers. They lie to Caroline, claiming Dan and Leah were skimming off the top to justify the hit. Samuel offers to sell off a collection of their late father Isaac's paintings to generate the money she needs. Even so, the project hits another wall when the city council bypasses Caroline entirely and awards the development bid to someone else because the councilman views her as a predatory capitalist. Caroline, clearly a true Rojas, decides she will get that project by any means necessary. The fallout from Etta letting those girls go continues to cause problems for the Rojas as the man supposed to get the shipment begins to freak out. There is another shipment on the way, but the man is more worried because he made the deal without the knowledge of his boss Fedorov, and he is terrified of what happens when Fedorov finds out. Elias is assigned to babysit him in a safe house until the next shipment arrives and the situation can be smoothed over. However, when the middleman gets paranoid and kills someone in the safe house, Elias executes him on the spot. This doesn't sit well with the Rojas brothers, especially Mateo, who explicitly told Elias to keep the man alive. Elias defends his actions by insisting he promised their father he would always protect the family, and that is exactly what he is doing. But his blatant disregard for their orders proves Isaac's dying warning was correct. Elias is loyal to the old boss, not the new ones. The brothers now believe that if they want to truly lead the cartel, they are going to have to find a way to crush the bone that is Elias before he decides he's the one in charge. Before Leah died, she told Etta about an estranged sister, Carmen, she hasn't spoken to in years. Clinging to the possibility of having at least one surviving relative, Etta decides she wants to find her aunt, Carmen. For the time being, though, Etta and Lovely are staying at Stanley's family home. Stanley's aunt, Miss Chidi, initially wants Etta out of the house, but after some convincing, she reluctantly agrees to let them stay for 1 month, as long as they each contribute $100 toward rent. Stanley takes it upon himself to get them set up, which means a trip to a back-channel operation where people can purchase the identities of deceased individuals who bear a passing physical resemblance to them. Lovely adopts the identity of another woman coincidentally also named Lovely, while Etta chooses the name Danny Cruz, partly because it reminds her of Dan. With their new identities in hand, they are placed at a hotel as housekeepers, where Etta uses a guest's iPad to search for Carmen online, and discovers she works at a nightclub. The job is going fine, until Etta's mind starts working against her. She has a photographic memory, and every face of every person who was present the night her family was killed is burned into it permanently. She has been seeing those faces projected onto strangers, which are hallucinations triggered by trauma and hypervigilance. She grabs a hotel guest, convinced for a moment that he is one of the 12 men on her list. He is not, but the man interprets the physical contact and the way she was watching him as an invitation, and he tricks her into his room and attempts to assault her. Etta violently fights him off before fleeing with Lovely. But because the man is an important client, the hotel immediately fires both girls. Lovely explodes at Etta afterward, frustrated that Etta is still behaving recklessly despite their situation. Unlike Etta, Lovely constantly fears deportation and understands how dangerous even minor attention from authorities could become. To her, survival now means staying invisible. Realizing she endangered both of them, Etta apologizes. The girls later sneak expensive dresses from the hotel's lost and found section and head to Carmen's nightclub, hoping for a warm family reunion. Instead, Etta is met with cold rejection. Carmen, who is the mirror image of Leah, wants no part of the family drama and tries to dismiss Etta with a handful of go-away money. Persuaded by Lovely to try one more time, Etta eventually convinces Carmen to hire them as bottle girls. Etta quickly proves her worth by using her sharp instincts to spot a drug dealer in the club. Though the dealer's bag is empty, Etta correctly guesses the stash is hidden against her thigh. Impressed, Carmen begins to soften, taking Etta to lunch to reminisce about her complicated past with her twin sister. The next day, while working, Etta spots a genuine member of the 12 who killed her parents. Unlike the hallucinations she's been experiencing, this time the face is real. She immediately chases after him, but the man escapes before she can catch him. Kincaid's investigation continues as he is called to interview 2 of the trafficked girls Etta freed on the boat. They positively identify Etta as their savior, and forensic results from the house fire reveal that the body previously thought to be Etta is actually Becca. Kincaid takes this report to his employer, which turns out to be Caroline. Because Caroline keeps her hands technically clean through her real estate empire, Kincaid has no idea he's being played by a cartel scion. Carolyn now knows for a fact that Etta Tiger Johns is alive and likely seeking blood. This revelation also exposes her brother's lies. Caroline realizes Mateo and Samuel didn't just kill the Johnsies for skimming, but were deep into human trafficking, which is a side of the business she despises. Despite her disapproval, the brothers are already moving forward, hiring a new smuggling crew to replace the one they slaughtered. Etta remembers that before the cartel guy she saw slipped out of the club that night, she saw him talking to a girl. When that same girl turns up at the club again later, Etta tries to approach her directly, but she comes in too hot, and the girl London has no interest in opening up to someone she doesn't know. So Etta sends in Lovely, who is far more naturally charming, and manages to get London talking without it feeling like an interrogation. To engineer a reason to see the man again, Etta decides to throw a party and invites London, banking on her bringing him along. Carmen happens to be going out of town, and she asks Etta to house sit, to feed her fish, look after her pets, and not do anything reckless. Etta barely waits for her to leave before she starts setting up. When London arrives, though, she comes with only her girls. Desperate, Etta steals London's phone and secretly posts her location online, hoping the man will show up. Instead, somebody far worse arrives. A dangerous man whom London owes money shows up to grab her. Etta tries to save the day by offering stolen drugs as payment, but London's insults lead to her getting shot anyway. They rush her to the illegal doctor, where a drugged-up London reveals the identity of the man Etta has been searching for, Juan Acuna, a loyal member of the Rojas cartel. Etta and Lovely try to scrub the house clean, but Carmen is former military and the security chief of a bar, so you don't pull a fast one on her. She notices the malfunctioning cameras and the stray party cups at the junction immediately. She takes back her keys, deeply disappointed that Etta failed the one test of trust she was given. After running down every address she can find connected to Juan Acuna, Etta finally locates him and follows him to a heavily guarded property, filled with many of the same men who participated in her family's murder. Realizing she cannot attack him there directly, she instead places his name on the guest list at Carmen's club to lure him into a more vulnerable environment. The plan is for Lovely to drug his drink and lure him outside for a clean hit, but Etta loses her cool and attacks him right in the club. Lovely is forced to help, and together they kill Juan right there. Carmen arrives just in time to help them dispose of the body in the ocean and wipe the footage, but she's furious. She reminds Etta that she was free to live her life because everyone believes she is dead, and now she's made herself a target. Etta finally breaks down, admitting her guilt over the boat incident, especially after seeing one of the girls she saved working as a prostitute at the club, leaving Etta thinking she killed her family for nothing. Carmen tells her the responsibility does not belong to her. Her parents knowingly lived inside a dangerous criminal world long before Etta made any decision that night. Still, the murder changes everything for the people around her. Shaken by the murder, Lovely and Stanley distance themselves from Etta, leading her to seek a distraction at the home of her love interest, Matt. Since money isn't doing what she wants, Caroline asks Samuel to put pressure on the man who blocked her development project. During the intimidation attempt, however, they discover the councilman secretly bribed this particular man against Caroline, leading her to decide she wants to handle the councilman personally. At the same time, the Rojas brothers realize killing the trafficker solved nothing. The man's boss, Fedorov, arrives unexpectedly and immediately demonstrates how dangerous he is. He first ambushes Elias at his home and offers him a position working for him before later summoning Mateo and Samuel to dinner. Running drugs in this territory belongs to the Rojas, but running women is Fedorov's operation. If the brothers want a piece of that business, they pay him a cut. Samuel agrees on the spot because he understands that the alternative is not walking out of the restaurant. Mateo is furious afterward, blowing up at Samuel that he had no authority to agree to anything, that he works for Mateo, not beside him. But Elias, watching all of it, has formed his own view. Samuel is the one who should be running this family. Samuel has the judgment and the restraint that Mateo lacks. But despite everything, Samuel refuses to betray his brother. The CCTV footage from the night Juan was killed makes Carmen realize the girls purposely killed him. She immediately puts Etta and Lovely on a mandatory 1-week suspension and sends them home. Alone in her apartment that night, Carmen finally lets herself fall apart. She pulls out a box of letters, every letter Leah sent her over the years after the estrangement. As she reads through them, the show takes us back to where the break began. Years earlier, Carmen had actually been the one dating Dan first. Back then, Dan was a divorced father with 2 sons, and he and Carmen were deeply in love. Carmen was educated, ambitious, and trying to build a stable future, But everything changed once she discovered Dan was running drugs. She gave him an ultimatum. If he wanted a future with her, he had to leave that life behind. Dan agreed and walked away from the business, at least until Leah entered the picture. Unlike Carmen, Leah was impulsive and constantly struggling financially. When she learned about Dan's old connections, she became interested in the fast money and convinced him to introduce her to the operation. For the Connect to take her seriously, Dan had to vouch for her personally, which meant going back in himself, just once. On their first run together, armed men attempted to rob them. Dan told Leah to run, but instead she stayed and helped save his life. The shared danger pulled them together, and after the incident they slept together, told themselves it was a mistake, and went back to their separate lives. 2 months later, the Connect called again. He wanted Leah specifically. She had been so composed under pressure that he trusted her. As Dan and Leah sat together mapping out the job, they realized they wanted the same things. Make serious money fast, buy boats, build a tour company as a front, and run the operation underneath it. He was drawn to her in the same way she was drawn to him. She accepted him completely, edges and all. They slept together again. Leah told him to stay away. That was the last time, she said. Then she started getting sick in the mornings. Carmen figured it out before Leah said a word. She sat her twin down and told her to keep the baby, promised she would be there for every part of it. And then Leah had to tell her who the father was. It broke Carmen in a way nothing else ever had. Not just losing Dan, but losing Leah, her twin, the person she trusted above everyone. Dan packed his things and left. When Carmen asked him why, he said that Leah took him as he was. Carmen told him the truth. What Leah was doing was not accepting him, it was indulging him. And the only people who would end up paying for that were the boys and the baby on the way. She turned her back on both of them after that. Dan, Leah, and the boys moved to the waterfront, and the letters started arriving. She kept every one of them. She just never wrote back. In the present, she is reading them and crying, and there is nothing left to say to any of it. The arm Etta injured during the fight with Juan has not healed properly, and it is still bleeding. While working her cleaning job, she opens her employer's desk drawer looking for a first aid kit, and instead finds photographs and some documents. Before she has time to understand what she is looking at, her boss calls her downstairs to help move some chairs, only to tase her and lock her in. What Etta found in the drawer turns out to be evidence that her boss, Lena, is a Mossad agent. Her family was killed, wiped out by Russian operatives, and she has spent years operating in the shadows ever since, running the motel as cover. When Etta regains consciousness in the locked room, Lena interrogates her hard. The dead woman's identity she has been using, Danny Cruz, is exactly that, a dead woman. So who is Etta really working for, and who sent her digging through her things? Etta eventually stops performing and tells the truth. Her name is Etta Tiger Johnzi. Her family was massacred by a cartel, and she intends to kill every person responsible. She asks Lena to teach her what she knows, but Lena refuses and walks out. A few minutes later, Etta manages to escape the room she was locked inside, only to discover Lena waiting outside. The captivity was actually a test. Lena wanted to know whether Etta had the instincts and resourcefulness to survive under pressure. Satisfied enough, Lena agrees to start training her. Using intelligence databases and old records, Lena helps Etta identify several men connected to the Rojas cartel, including one of her targets, Alexander, a violent criminal with multiple arrests and prison stints already attached to his name. The two stake out Alexander's home together, where Lena begins teaching Etta the fundamentals of surveillance, patterns, routines, emotional discipline, and understanding a target before attempting a kill. They quickly discover Alexander's weaknesses, drugs, escorts, and predictable habits. At one point, Alexander unexpectedly returns home while they are still inside the house, and Etta nearly impulsively attacks him on the spot. Lena stops her immediately, reminding her that revenge without control gets people killed. To help stabilize Etta emotionally, Lena teaches her a regulation exercise. She tells Etta to picture Alexander until the rage fully rises, then immediately redirect her mind toward a peaceful memory. Etta thinks about a happy moment with Dan, and the anger slowly steadies. That centered emotional state, Lena explains, is the only way Etta can survive this life. Together, they build a clean assassination plan. Etta will approach Alexander posing as an escort, drug him with a paralytic, lure him into the pool, then drown him in what will appear to be an accidental overdose. However, the mission is nearly derailed by a crisis at home. Caroline's real estate group, RRG, is aggressively buying up the neighborhood, and a construction crew accidentally kills one of Stanley's beloved cats. Stanley, spiraling in an autistic meltdown, kills 2 of the contractors in retaliation. Etta makes a choice that infuriates Lena but saves her friends. She prioritizes family by helping Stanley bury the bodies under the very concrete the crew was pouring. This act of loyalty mends her friendship with Lovely, and once the bodies are hidden, Etta returns to finish Alexander, drowning him in his own pool while he's paralyzed and helpless. With no obvious next target, Etta turns her attention back to the coded notebook Leah left behind. After struggling for days, she finally cracks the cipher when she realizes the decoding key is her full name, Henrietta. The notebook reveals coordinates, account information, and financial records tied directly to RRG, the company Caroline uses to launder cartel money through development projects. Leah kept that notebook as insurance, a record of everything she knew, in case she ever needed it. Etta also realizes RRG is the exact company attempting to force Stanley's aunt, Miss Chitty, and the remaining residents out of their neighborhood for redevelopment. Caroline orders Kincaid to investigate every resident refusing to sell. Most are eventually pressured into leaving, but there is almost nothing compromising in Miss Chitty's background, and she stubbornly refuses Caroline's offers. When Miss Chitty's home later becomes infested with bugs, clearly another intimidation tactic, Etta gets an idea for her next kill. Instead of killing one target at a time, she decides to eliminate several cartel members simultaneously. Using her knowledge of how Dan and Leah used to run smuggling operations, Etta predicts the timing of an upcoming drug shipment. Knowing the smugglers constantly smoke while unloading product, she rigs a drone carrying C4 explosives to target the shipment. The plan almost falls apart before it even begins, when one of the cartel's men catches Etta waiting in her car and attempts to drag her away. Fortunately, Stanley secretly followed her, despite being told not to. Wanting to repay Etta for helping him earlier, he intervenes and saves her. By the time they recover, the boats have already departed, forcing them to improvise and target the warehouse crew unloading the shipment instead. Etta drops the explosive onto the site, and the smugglers unknowingly make the situation worse by shooting directly at the device, triggering a massive explosion that wipes out several cartel members at once. The best part is that the Rojas brothers don't even suspect a teenage girl is behind the carnage. Because of the brewing territory war, they immediately assume the attack was orchestrated by Fedorov and the Russians. That assumption actually makes sense, because M.I.A recently dragged the cartel into deeper problems with Fedorov's organization. Beyond demanding a cut from the trafficking business, Fedorov introduced them into helping move illegal weapons shipments. Samuel warned M.I.A not to get further entangled with him, understanding it would only give Fedorov more leverage over them, but M.I.A couldn't resist the money. When the shipment later gets compromised, Fedorov blames the brothers for the leak and retaliates brutally by murdering M.I.A.'s wife. That pushes the Rojas brothers into open war against him. Ironically, Etta's warehouse bombing happens during a meeting with Colombian allies, making the Colombians believe Fedorov attacked the Rojas operation himself, which convinces them to support the brothers against him. Even after offering Miss Chitty $4 million for her property, the woman refuses to sell. Carolyn eventually snaps and murders her by pushing her down a staircase. The group initially celebrates Etta's successful bombing until news breaks about Miss Chitty's death. When they discover Caroline offered her millions on the exact same day she died, Etta immediately realizes Caroline orchestrated the murder. Caroline officially joins Etta's kill list, especially when her investigation uncovers a pattern of mysterious deaths surrounding nearly every major RRG development project. While Etta plans her downfall, Caroline launches her building construction and her bid to run for councilwoman, just to stick it to the councilman who tried to block her project. With the Colombians behind them, the Rojas brothers launch a coordinated assault against Fedorov's operation. M.I.A gets his eye for an eye revenge by killing Fedorov's wife before executing the man himself. The victory is short-lived, however, when M.I.A finds a picture of Elias with Fedorov in Fedorov's things. He orders Samuel to kill the longtime enforcer, but Samuel, who has a conscience, can't go through with it and tells Elias to run. Elias is not in a particularly good shape because while trying to find Juan, he went to the club he was last seen and instead found Carmen, who looks so much like Leah that it stops him in his tracks. He sneaked into her house hoping to talk, but Carmen mistakes him for an intruder and attacks. The fight becomes brutal, ending with both of them shooting each other. When the kids show up at Carmen's apartment, she was supposed to help them secure a place nearby using the money from the sale of Miss Chitty's home, and when she didn't show, they came looking. They find her on the floor, bloodied. Elias is also on the floor, but while everyone's attention is on Carmen, Elias pulls himself up, gets into his car, and drives himself home. Etta follows him. She arrives at Elias's place, just as Samuel attempts to leave. He had a change of mind after finding Fedorov's business card in Elias's drawer, the one Fedorov gave him the night he ambushed Elias at his own home and tried to recruit him. Samuel concluded his brother was right and stabbed Elias, only to end up with a bullet from Etta's gun. She moves in to finish Elias, but she sees a broken man who has outlived his purpose and has been discarded by the family he served for 30 years. Etta realizes that killing him is too easy. She decides to save him instead, taking him to Lena's underground facility to be shackled while he recovers. Her mission has evolved. She doesn't just want bodies, she wants to dismantle the Rojas empire from the inside, and Elias could become the key to doing that. In the middle of all of this, Matt has been one of the few stable people in Eda's life. She was supposed to meet his mother earlier that day but nearly ghosts him because of everything happening, but Lovely convinces her to go because it means a lot to Matt. Eda finally arrives at Matt's house, only to discover his mother is Caroline, the very woman she recently added to her kill list. To make things worse, Mateo finds Samuel, who survived Eda's shot, and learns that the Johns girl is officially back from the dead. Kincaid begins piecing everything together too. Miss Chitty's death convinces him Caroline was responsible, pushing him to quit private investigation work and return to the police force officially so he can investigate properly. The detective previously handling Carmen's shooting is also retiring, causing the case to land directly on Kincaid's desk. Reviewing the security footage, Kincaid finally spots Eda clearly on camera and confirms beyond doubt that she is alive. As for Carmen, she is rushed to the hospital after the shooting. But when Eda and the others arrive to visit her, they only find an empty room and her discarded clothes. The group assumes she's dead, but it is possible Mateo Rojas got there first, or she has gone ghost. Regardless, the stage is set for Season 2.